welcome to another edition of the Sustainable Scoop. There are some people that cross corners, communities, and some that cross continents to solve issues around the world. And joining me today is Jessica Graham. She is one of those people. She's with a company called JG Global Advisories. Welcome, Jessica.
Thanks for having me.
Well, the last time you and I got together, I see you quite often on panel discussions. You're a subject matter expert on criminal law, international law as it relates to conservation, and you were talking about sustainable material management. You were also on a panel with Tommy Wells talking about the impact that a lot of America's consumption has on the rest of the world. So what's happened since then?
Thanks. Yeah, it's been a busy whirlwind with JG Global Advisory, working at the cross section of conservation and the environment with law enforcement. So things have been quite busy. I work with a lot of executives from conservation organizations who are working on various issues from wildlife trafficking to climate change and deforestation. I help them with supporting efforts on strategic policy planning and stakeholder engagement, as well as with the private sector on sustainability issues, where companies are really trying to get behind doing the right thing and looking internally at where their progress is being made on sustainable development goals or how they're assessed on the environmental standpoint internally and where they can make profit but also save costs in doing the right thing.
Well, needless to say, a lot of these companies are companies that we find on our shelves in the grocery store or we drive as automobiles. And yes, consumers are becoming more conscientious about issues of sustainability, about conservation. And I would guess that businesses need some advice on how to make good fiscal decisions while at the same time recognizing that the time has come to consider the environment in their business decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm coining it as environmental profitability, addressing where they're saving, but also it's not just about lowering costs and they're not just supply chains, but value chains, but increasing efficiency to have a greater impact.
When you were at the Sundance Film Festival, tell us a little bit about Ron Howard's movie and what he said to the public.
Yeah, I was on I joined their panel with Ron Howard and the former EPA Administrator Gina McCarthy, who's now the National Resources Defense Council President. And they really, on the documentary they did with Nat Geo and Entertainment Weekly, they did it's called Rebuilding Paradise, and it was about the fires that happened in Paradise, California, and the impact that had. And what Ron really highlighted, which took the message home for me, is about showing up for your community, showing up, taking a role, whether it's climate change or other environmental issues that we just can't ignore at this time. And Gina McCarthy's message was also very impressionable, and resiliency is so important when communities such as Paradise was devastated by the fires, and rebuilding that.
And rebuilding it in a sustainable way. There are tragedies that happen, but guiding governments, as you do, and also NGOs on how to leverage the opportunity that comes from perhaps rebuilding and development in a new way.
Yeah, I work in a very dark world where you're looking at law enforcement and the crimes involved in the environmental aspect. And so for me, it is it's having that hopeful optimism and continuing to have that to engage all stakeholders, not just governments, but private sector leaders. In the absence of federal leaders, you find other countries stepping up. You find other entities such as state and local government leaders stepping up to fulfill a lot of these agreements that we've done internationally or environmental aspects writ large.
So I think that young people are really hearing the message and echoing that voice. I know you had the opportunity to hear Greta Thunberg speak, and you also had the opportunity recently to sit down and hear Lonnie Bunch, Secretary of the Smithsonian, talk about their goals for conservation and how he maintains optimism. Tell me just real quickly, what was your impression?
Lonnie, it was, identifying the location, building it over a swamp, the African American Museum in particular I'm talking about, and all of those challenges that came on that, from the political side to the management side to the environmental aspect. And he crossed through two different presidential administrations for that over the years of that building. With Greta, she has used her emotions, and she appears to feel overwhelmed without the leadership and decision policymakers making a stance and taking action quick enough. And so, I think a voice needs to be heard, trusting the process, being optimistic that there is hope for change, that everyone has a role to play. These are all important messages that I've been surrounded by, just even, with Sundance, for example. The Hollywood community wants to do more on climate change. You heard it at the Oscars being spoken about. So all of these areas are really important for all stakeholders across communities to engage on important issues.
I'm just so grateful that you're at the cutting edge of policy, business, and the grassroots movements that make communities grow and succeed. So, and by the way, young people say that policy is a lot more fun than they thought it was. So I think that's a testament to the work you're doing. Yeah. And I want to thank you so much for coming on the Sustainable Scoop. How do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, they can reach me on my website. We have a website, jgglobaladvisory.com.
Okay, great. We'll definitely look you up, jgglobaladvisory.com. Write that down. I'm Miriam Gennari. That's the Sustainable Scoop. Back to the news desk.